Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Korean Studies Seminar Series about social acceptability of nuclear power in South Korea. My name is Professor Ho-yoon Ko from Poli-Sci Department, and I'm also leading Korean Studies Center at School of Sciences and Humanities. Well, this series is organized with some support from Korea Foundation of South Korean government. Throughout the series, we are introducing different policies of South Korea, from environment to gender politics. And especially for this week, we invite Professor Kang from Seoul, from South Korea, to introduce how South Korean citizens and public respond to the nuclear energy plants, which is, I think, pretty relevant to today's ongoing debates, public debates in Kazakhstan. So let me quickly introduce Professor Kang before I hand over a microphone to him. So Professor Kang is an assistant professor at Pohang University of Science and Technology, or simply call it POSTECH, which is one of the top schools in the world in the engineering subject. He studied major, mainly elections, South Korean politics, and recently he had multiple studies done about energy and social and political aspects of energy uses. So I think he's the best person who I can introduce you to the topic of this nuclear energy plant. So please welcome him with a big applause. And then after the lecture, if you have any questions about the topic or about the POSTECH, the university itself, because in my understanding, he brought some surprise to share with you at the end of the lecture today. Okay, so Professor Kang.
Thank you for having me. My name is Myung-hoon Kang, and I'm so kind of, embarrassed with my picture. So, yeah, like he said, I'm in University of Engineering, but I majored in political science. So sometimes I have some crisis in my identity because I study political science, but everybody in my university talks about engineering, something that I cannot understand, something, the law of physics or something like that. But so I tried to survive at the university, and I just realized that actually you have to understand what politics and how to make the public policy is really, really important to study engineering and, other natural sciences. So, okay, let me talk about today's topic, the nuclear power plant and the social acceptability of nuclear power in South Korea. Actually, there are so many nuclear power plants in South Korea. How many? It's already 26. And Korea is a very small country, right? And actually, this nuclear power is very important because about 1/3 of the total electricity generated in South Korea are from nuclear power. But as you know, do you think the nuclear power is safe? And are you willing to accept to build nuclear power next to your house? Why? But it is important, right? Especially for the South Korea, we need to use electricity power like the lights and the computer, projection, everything, right? Oh, I have a question for you. There are two different options. One is skiing. Sounds interesting. And the second option is having a nuclear power next to your door. How many of you think that which is much more dangerous? Option 1 or option 2? How many of you think that option 1? Raise your hand. Well, that's much more dangerous than the nuclear power? All right. Then how many of you think the nuclear power is much more dangerous than skiing? All right, so looks like the majority of this classroom thinks that nuclear power is much more dangerous than skiing. But in fact, if we calculate the probability of any accident based on scientific evidence, then the accident rate of the nuclear power is 1 in million. It's much lower than you have an accident while you're skiing. then what happens? Most of you says that nuclear power is much more dangerous. Then why did you make that kind of decision? Have you heard about this kind of probability of accident rate by the nuclear power before? Yes, but you still think that nuclear power is much more dangerous? Yeah, she said yes. Then what happens? This is perception. Yeah, even if you know some objective and scientific evidence, but our brain and our mind subjectively process some information, and based on that subjective process of information, you made a decision. That's the result. So social acceptability is a problem of, I say, this kind of perception, social perception of something. In this case, social perception of nuclear power. So many scholars actually try to investigate what made the social acceptance, what leads people's social acceptance of nuclear power. So many factors. I don't like this feature because it's too complex. But at least we know some very important factors here. One is what environmental concern. Or the other is place attachment. That means I love my country. I love my neighborhood, and this neighborhood should be from something very dangerous, right? So if the nuclear power plant will be built in somewhere I don't know, I'm okay. But in my neighborhood, no, over my dead body, right? And trust in the managing body, including government and the company, etc. Yeah, I know that there is a high technology that keeps the nuclear power safe, but if I do not trust people working in the government or the company, then no. I'm so sure that they will make mistake. I'm so sure that they'll lead to accident, and they will not do anything if accident happens. That's the trust. If you do not trust the people in these bodies, then no, we cannot build a nuclear power plant. And also perceived benefit and risk. What's the benefit? Low cost of electricity. And the other benefit is something very interesting, that usually the company and the government kind of propose financial reward to the people in the region that was planned to be the site for the nuclear power. Hey, if you accept the nuclear power plant in your neighborhood, then I will give you a lot of money. I will build airport, I will build gyms, I will build school, etc. That's the benefit. Then what's the risk? Even the probability is very low, but 1 in a million. But if the nuclear power plant exploded, what will happen? I will die, right? There's no time to escape because I live right next to the nuclear power plant. Actually, that concern, psychological, risk actually is very, very huge, in fact. The other things, what? If people think that that region is very dangerous, then they think that the value of the land in that region is very low. Then what happens? Your asset or your wealth goes down because your house is in that region, that kind of things. So all the factors actually determines your level of social acceptance of the nuclear power, and this individual acceptance will be aggregated as the social acceptance. So today I'm going to talk about the trust in the managing body because this is something related to the political science, because now we are talking about government, right? And usually the trust in the managing body actually was determined by 3 factors. The quality of experts who are working in the government or the company. Actually, KHNP means Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company. And neutrality and objectivity. That means even I know that they are high quality, but if they use that knowledge and expertise for their own benefit, then I cannot trust them. They should their professional knowledge for the public interest, public good. And their decision should be based on neutral and objective evidence, which is scientific evidence. And public interest is the same thing. Yeah, if they use their knowledge for their private interest, then no, I cannot trust them. They should use and they work for the public interest. So let's talk about the status in South Korea, the South Korea's attitude to the expert in the government and the company, the nuclear power company. Actually, Professor Park at Korea University did a survey last year, 2024. And actually, you can see that many of Koreans agrees that experts in South Korea made their decision based on scientific evidence, and they're working for their public interest, and their decision is neutral and objective. So it looks like there's no problem at all, right? And also, 62% of Koreans answered that they have high confidence in the quality of the expert. But actually, the thing is that actually I'm studying this project, and I visited the one of the nuclear power sites in South Korea, and I have some interview with the persons in the company, and they always complain about the opposition from local people and many people. If they try to say continue the operation with nuclear power, then something you cannot imagine happens. Like one guy, just pop out and in front of the gate of the nuclear power site, and he just like, hey, you should kill me if you want to continue the operation of the nuclear power or something like that. What happens? But based on this model, looks like there should be no problem. So I'll talk about three main obstacles to build trust in the government that was not captured in the previous model. The first thing is the politicization of science and cognitive bias in South Korea in these days. And the second one is asymmetric information, which is not interesting, but I have to briefly should mention this one. And the third one is very interesting topic which is interest politics, which is bargaining relationships and absence of shared identity. So let me talk about the first one. Actually, this graph shows the people's opinion about whether the nuclear power is safe or not. Then very interesting. Actually, DPK means the Democratic Party of Korea, which can be considered as kind of leftist party. And the PPP means the People's Power Party in South Korea, which represents rightist party. Then as you can see, the leftist party supporters say, oh, it's at least dangerous or very dangerous. Most of them, right? But most of the supporters of the PPP says that, oh, it's very safe and safe. Do you think this is a coincidence? How about this one? Same pattern. It suggests that actually people's opinion about the nuclear power is already politicized. It's not a matter of science. Even if they are asked to making judgment about based on scientific evidence, but now they are using their partisan attitude or partisan opinion to form their opinion about the nuclear power. That's what's going on in South Korea. Let's talk about Fukushima contaminated water release, which was a hot topic probably 1 or 2 years ago in South Korea. And many scientific evidence and many scientists suggest that, yeah, this is not good, but don't worry, scientifically, we cannot say this is dangerous. It can cause huge harm. And even IAEA also confirms, they release contaminated water, but no, they just follow the procedure which is based on international standards. So it will be not a big problem. But we did the same survey again, and this is the result. Again, the supporters of the leftist party, DPK, says that they think that the potential contamination of marine environment and seafood is very likely, which is very contrasted by the supporters of the PPP. And the same pattern here. This is very, very partisan issue in South Korea. Then what politicizes science? This is a typical topic of political psychology. One thing is confirmation bias, right? You have a pre-existing belief, then you process information that confirms or at least align you with your pre-existing beliefs. In other words, you wanna see what you wanna see. You understand something as you like to understand. And, oh, that's a typo, sorry, motivated reasoning. So you have directional goals instead of following accuracy. That means you want to process, you want to believe what will help your pre-existing beliefs. And even if you do not have some great information to understand what's going on, then you just simply follow the cues from political elites or partisan elites that you support. So if you're a supporter of the DPK, then and you don't have enough knowledge to understand what's going on right now, then you just simply believe what the political leader says that you trust and you support. That's what's going on. Or even the trust in the government will be based on the partisanship. That means if the leader of the government is your co-partisan, then you trust the government. But if the leader of the government is not your co-partisan, then you do not trust the government. It doesn't matter whether the government has great system or not. You just follow the people, the partisan, the individual. So here's some evidence that the nuclear power policy is very partisan. So I'm sorry, this is all Korean, but I believe that some of you may understand the Korean here. But the point here is that in 2022, there was a presidential election. And I did some analysis, then I found out these things. If you support nuclear power, then you are more likely to support the current impeached president, Yoon Suk-yeol, from PPP, the Conservative Party or Rightist Party. But if you oppose nuclear power, then you are more likely to support another candidate from DPK, Lee Jae-myung. So this is so partisan issue. It's not anymore just a matter of science. So me and here, Professor Park actually did some research about this one. So the background is that actually in 2017, the former president Moon Jae-in decided to stop all the nuclear power generation. So he introduced the nuclear power page out policy. That means we're not gonna use nuclear anymore. We're gonna reduce the nuclear power in South Korea. But that generated heated debate in South Korea. And one of the main topics of the debate is whether the South Korea's nuclear page out policy is aligned with the global trend or not. So the the anti-nuclear people actually claim that, hey, there are so many countries like Germany, Taiwan, and France, not France maybe, right? They just decide to close all the nuclear power plants. So this is a global trend. But the pro-nuclear people argue that no, that's just part of them. Actually, almost all the countries actually try to build more nuclear power plants. So there are so many information about the global trend. Some argues that, yeah, nuclear phase out is not a global trend. But usually, mainly from governments, nuclear phase out is a global trend. So we should continue to phase out policy. So me and Professor Park actually made this kind of information. Pro-nuclear statement says that actually nuclear phase out is against the global trend. And the anti-nuclear statement says that the phase out policy is for the global trend. But these two are actually misleading information. They are not true. Both are not true. Because actually the IAEA says both are possible. And IAEA says it depends on many conditions, right? So each statement is not true. Then we subject some people like this. So from PPP, we have 369. From DPK, we have 581 subjects. And we expose either pro-nuclear statement or anti-nuclear statement. Since PPP are pro-nuclear, then we can, identify their kind of attitude towards the statement, whether they are pro-attitudinal or counter-attitudinal, right? So I don't have enough time, so let me just skip the details. So after the subject are exposed this kind of misleading information, then we give them true information. As I said before, hey, actually, the statement you received, right, people, actually was not true because IAEA said both scenarios. So nobody knows which one is true or not. Right? And then we check whether they correct their beliefs about whether the statement is true or false. Here are the results. What do you see? It's quite difficult, right? So if you see that the initial statement actually was aligned with your pre-existing belief, then before the correction, your score was very high, and the 100 means completely true. So probably if you think that the statement, oh, this statement actually supports my beliefs, and I think this is true. So that's why the score is very high compared to the other groups. But after the correction, looks like they changed their mind. Oh, I was wrong. That's why the average score goes down, right? So looks like this is good news, right? Which implies that if the media or the government or whatever provide accurate information to the people, then the people will correct their beliefs, right? So this is kind of one effective way to combat fake news or whatever, right? But the thing is that the effect of the belief correction is what? There is some resistance. That means we just, let me put it simply with about this graph. So we just compare the size of the effect for the counter-attitudinal and pro-attitudinal group. And the baseline is independent, neutral. And actually you see that if you believe that the fake or false statement supports your pre-existing beliefs, then you have some resistance to correct your beliefs compared to the other groups. So probably you may change, you may correct your beliefs, but the size is less than the other group. You still wanna keep your belief as that the statement is true because that statement supports my pre-existing belief. So this is kind of one challenge we have to think about. So this is a kind of a result. Put it simply, people have very complex psychological mechanisms. So if some issue becomes partisan, then it's quite difficult to deal with the issue because now people do not care about the scientific evidence. Instead, they just try to support or keep their opinion based on their partisan beliefs. But this is not that important compared to the second topic, asymmetric information. Have you heard about asymmetric information before? Yeah, what's the asymmetric information? It's very simple. The information, the distribution of the information between two parties are asymmetric, like this figure shows. Yeah, this is very funny figures. So this is a tteokbokki, typical street snack in South Korea. And they try to buy some tteokbokki and they do not know whether this is good or not. So they ask the owner, say, hey, this is good, is this good? And of course it is. But in fact, actually, I don't trust my cooking skills. But the problem, what is the problem? These guys do not know whether this guy do not trust her cooking skills. This is the typical example of asymmetric information. Then why asymmetric information is important and matters? Because when you talk about nuclear power or nuclear physics, nuclear chemistry, to me, I have a headache. I cannot understand what they are saying. It's too complicated, right? It's too deep for me to understand. That's the asymmetric information. Then what happens? The guys in the company and the government might lie to us because there's no way we can detect whether they're saying true or not, right? So maybe the guys in the nuclear power company might seek private interest on the name of public interest. That is called what? Moral hazard. And actually, in South Korea, there's some history of this kind of moral hazard. There was some corruption, but it was too difficult to detect because of the asymmetric information. So this is a kind of another source of reducing the trust in the body. Okay, this is a typical policy, public policy things, but let me skip this. And another history is this one. Probably you might remember the Fukushima accident, right? But what happens? Actually, the Tokyo Electric Power Company tried to hide the fact that they had a meltdown in Fukushima. This is another example of moral hazard because they know the information, they have the information, but we do not have a tool to detect the truth, right? So based on this kind of some bad history, now we cannot trust them. Does it make sense? So what will be the solution? Well, to me, I do not trust people. Why? I agree with what James Madison says. If men were angels, then there will be no government, right? Because we do not need government because everybody is angel. Then nothing bad can happen, right? But also, if angels were to government, then neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. But unfortunately, we are not angels. Then what we need some institution to control the behavior of someone who has informational power or under the asymmetric information setting. That's the institution. At the same time, we need to educate them, not just normal people. the expert. We need to inject some norms. And we need to try to force them to abide by the norms. Right? And the third factor is interest politics. So here's some examples. So this is the very recent survey result. So you can see that 81.9% of South Korean people says that we need nuclear power. And 69.8% of Korean population says that, yeah, I approve for nuclear power continuous operation. We need to continue the operation of nuclear power. But the puzzle actually is that this one. If you live in region where the nuclear power plant has built, then our intuition might say that, hey, then they might oppose the nuclear power because they have a lot of kind of damage and some bad things from the nuclear power. But actually, they are more approved, and they expect more necessity to keep the nuclear power. So this is kind of a puzzle. What happens? Probably one might try to explain using the concept of NIMBY, right? So probably, actually, this is the public policy theory, and Wilson's policy categorization says that this is a case of entrepreneurial politics. That means, actually, building a nuclear power plant, the cost of the nuclear power plant concentrate on some groups, like people, local people living in the region of nuclear power plant site. But the benefit by the nuclear power plant is diffused among all Korean people on the peninsula. So actually, the motivation to oppose the nuclear power plant is very high because all the costs concentrate on me. But the beneficiary of the benefit of the nuclear power, they actually are not that really motivated to say, hey, we need the nuclear power because in South Korea, how many people live in this? 50 million people. So let's say $50 million are kind of the measured benefit of the nuclear power. Then $50 million divided by 50 million people is what? Just $1. The benefit is very small. So I don't need to actively, oppose the nuclear power or condemn the opposition of the nuclear power. So probably people think that, yeah, the local people may try to oppose because the costs are so concentrated on themselves. But at the same time, in South Korea, there's another factor, PIMFI. Like I said before, actually, if the nuclear power plant was built in somewhere, then you got tremendous financial reward. I have to calculate because it is measured in South Korean currency. So it's like more than $1 billion a year. $1 billion. It's huge money. Then probably you have an incentive to attract or keep the nuclear power in your site because you can get some money from the company, from the government. So let me talk about some case here, Uljin in South Korea, and there are so many nuclear power plants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 reactors currently in operation. In 2016, people in Uljin County opposed the construction of the new nuclear power plants. So they have some demonstration, protest like here, and even the leader actually cut her hair off as an expression of the opposition. But in 2017, the government actually canceled the construction plan after the introducing the nuclear page-out policy. Then our intuition says that the people in Uljin will be very happy, right? Yeah, now they stopped the plan. We won. But what happened? They process test again. People in the Uljin urged the government, hey, build a nuclear power plant. How can you understand this phenomenon? It's puzzle, right? But the answer is very simple. The people in Uljin County actually did not really mean the opposition of the construction of a new nuclear power plant. Instead, they tried to increase their bargaining chip. You know what I mean? But we cannot condemn them. Why? After the construction of a lot of 8 reactors in the Uljin County, they do not have anything but the nuclear power plant as the source of their income. Their economy heavily depends on the nuclear industry. If you have some business, then almost all the customer you have will be from the company, nuclear power plant. There's no other way. Actually, Uljin is very undeveloped area in South Korea. So they have some kind of ambiguous attitude toward the nuclear power. They think they are victims, but at the same time, they cannot give it up, because if they stop, if the company stop operation there, then there's no way they can make money. Then what happens there? Actually, you can see there's no problem in terms of science or techniques. This is actually a real quote from the interview. They said, hey, I poured the concrete for the plan, so I believe it, I trust it. They thoroughly combined even a single bolt and nut. It's not that dangerous for my living here for 30 years, something like that. But at the same time, they have sense of relative deterioration. That means this one, the KHMP, the nuclear power company, employees treat us like a, I'm sorry, this is typo. We are worthless as we have no powers. They are disregarding us. They say countless times, if we hadn't come, it would have been completely underdeveloped. They still say among themselves. And also, they also have another kind of complaint, because they know that the money has to come to themselves, but actually the reward, the financial reward goes to the government, the local government. And the local government, at the local government, the politician actually have to distribute all the money to all the region, because they have to think about their election. And that small town is not really helpful for their election. They have to spend money to other people as well, say to buy boat. And the local people knows that fact. That's why they say even towns without nuclear power have improved. So we cannot trust the government as well. That's another problem. So they think that they just thinking that the company and the government is not our side. They are outgrowths. We cannot trust them. They are someone different from us. So actually they fail to build long-term relationships. And they just behave based on their myopic calculation. And in fact, if you think about the KHMP, the company, actually every employers actually have some rotation for 2 years. So you work in this site for 2 years, then you will go to another nuclear power site, other region. So the people change all the time. And the local people cannot believe them, cannot trust them. Then what will happen? They try to get as many as possible. And opposition is the bargaining chip. I know by the law, you need my approval. So until you propose something satisfactory amount of money to us, we say no. Also, the local people think that this is the only way even politicians will listen to us. So they strategically use the opposition of nuclear power plant. And that's the core of the problem of social acceptability in South Korea. So here's the point. Many people think that, hey, if we build a new great technology, then people might trust in the nuclear power. And they will, agree with the continuation of the operation of nuclear power. Yeah, that's true, but that's just a part of the story. Another part says that you have to trust, you have to build a trust based on these kind of things. It means you need to make them, the local people, think that the company is not different from you. The company is part of your community. They are your partner. They are your neighborhood. But this is quite difficult. And in my opinion, actually the South Korean government failed to build this trust in the past. Why? The nuclear power plant was, the first plan of the nuclear power was planned by authoritarian regime. So it was very easy for the government to just proceed the construction of the nuclear power plant, right? But anyway, South Korea has been a democratic country from the beginning. So they just give some money, the financial reward to the people. And the government thought that this is a very simple and quick way to resolve any conflict. It worked in the past. But after the consolidation of democracy, now this is not a sustainable way to address this kind of conflict. But still, the company and the government take the same approach. And the people evolved. The local people learned a lot from this policy from the government. So, okay, they will not change their action. They will not change their strategy. What's the best for us? Okay, just voice huge opposition. They are not willing to mingle with us. Then the best we can do is just what? Get as much as possible by voicing huge opposition of nuclear power. Yeah, this is another testimony that supports this claim. So I would say this is kind of transactional relationships. It's not relationship between neighbors. It's not relationship between some fellow citizens. Instead, you just approach this situation as transactions. I need more bargaining chip to get more. Then let's fight. That's the big issues in South Korea regarding the nuclear power policy in these days. So what will be the principles to increase social acceptability? Well, first, we try to depoliticize the issue. Let's think about based on the science. I know this is very difficult, but we have to try it. And the second is let's reduce the asymmetric information by building an institution that guarantees the transparency and openness. That means anybody can join the process and they can get the information about what's going on very easily. And the second, interest politics, we need more inclusiveness of people in the policy formation and implementation. And also we have to build common identity to end the transactional relationship. Instead, we need some sense of feeling that they are my friends. They are my fellow citizens. They will not betray us, right? So I think this is all for the topic. And I got my salary from POSTECH. So I have some obligation to introduce my institution to you because actually, yeah, this is much more important for you. Yeah, the division of the advanced nuclear engineering at POSTECH, the professors have very good impression of the student and you. Yeah, they know you are the best and you are very smart. So actually, the chair of the division actually asked me to promote the division because he actually really want to attract a lot of good students from NU to the POSTECH. So actually, I don't know. This is what I got from the division. So if you're interested, just look at this. And probably some of you might think that, hey, there is some asymmetric information between me and you. So I might lie, right? Because you don't have any great information about the POSTECH right now, right? Probably you can Google up, but so anyway, but you can run a lot of things like nuclear safety, plasma accelerator. Actually, we have a accelerator facility in the campus, and AI, robotics, and nuclear environment, and convergence with humanity. That's something similar to what I talked today, and we have great, international networks. So try to reduce the asymmetric information between me and you. Actually, I got some message from your alumni, Jarina. Actually, she is the class of 2020. She studied here, chemistry, and she was one of the best students at POSTECH. So let me wrap up this lecture by introducing her, interview her testimony, I don't know, about the POSTECH. So let's see the clips. I cannot. Right. So if you have a question, then do not send an email to me, but to her. She's much more expert about these things rather than me. But if you're interested in other things about what I talk today, then just feel free to send me an email, and I'm willing to answer the email. And that's it for today. And thank you so much. And if you have any questions, then feel free to ask me.